How's everyone doing this morning? Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be with you in this terrific setting. I've actually haven't been in this casino and hotel before. I suspect some of you built this place, so it's great to be in here. Again, thanks for having me, and I really do appreciate what you all do every day, because I think one of the things that gets lost when we talk about the role of organized labor in the United States of America is people often narrowly think of labor as fighting for the interest of their members and their workers. But that's actually not the case. What you all do is fight for every worker every day. It's true, because the only group of human beings that wakes up every day and focuses on what's good for workers is folks in labor. Full stop. No one else does that every single day, and I really appreciate that, and I'm grateful for what you do. And one of the reasons I'm probably so appreciative of that is because of the perspective I have in terms of how I was raised. So I grew up in a blue-collar town in North Jersey. Everyone I knew growing up worked with their hands. They were plumbers, they were carpenters, they were masons, or they worked in factories. And my dad was included in that because he was an electrician. Strongest person I ever met, actually. He's the kind of person who could take a rusted bolt and open it with his bare hands. He was a union electrician, though, which was really good. He was a member for 60 years of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Any IBW members here? Local 164 out of Jersey City, New Jersey. And that union took really good care of us growing up. When my dad worked, which was most of the time, he got paid well and could support his family. When he didn't work, which from time to time he didn't, including in the 70s when there was a big recession, what got him back to work, by the way, was a big public works project, building of the Meadowlands in New Jersey where all those stadiums and racetracks are. When he didn't work, we had health care. And my dad wasn't a sophisticated guy by any stretch of the imagination. So we didn't have a lot of complicated, fancy, theoretical, political discussions around the dinner table. I never heard an argument between socialism and capitalism. Never heard about any of that once till I went to college. I never heard about trickle-down economics or redistribution. Never heard about that once. But my dad did give me a political lesson. And he told me what I'm about to tell you thousands of times. He would sit there, typically at the little kitchen table that we had in our kitchen where we would have dinner every night, and he'd typically have a beer in his hand. And he'd say, "John, let me tell you how politics works." And he'd say, "If you care about workers, you vote for the Democrats." That was his lesson. I bet he told me that 1,000 times. And as I look back and I think about the Democratic Party going forward, I actually think my dad had really good insights. Because if the Democratic Party stays focused on that message, putting the worker first, and making sure whenever we're talking about a piece of policy, whether it be economic policy, whether it be environmental policy, whether it be educational policy, whether it be healthcare policy, we say to ourselves, what does this do for hardworking Americans? Does it help them or does it hurt them? And if it's not going to help them, it probably shouldn't be part of our platform. So again, I'm very grateful for the family I grew up in and the values that my dad gave me and the opportunity to grow up in a union family. And that union did a lot for me. When I went to college, that union gave me a scholarship. And that scholarship paid for half of my tuition. And I went to Columbia University, which is an experience that fundamentally changed my life. First in my family to go to college. I used to have to go every summer to the Union Hall in Jersey City, New Jersey, and get on a stage, not as fancy as this, and thank all of those members for giving me that scholarship, because what they were really giving me was an opportunity that none of them had. And it's always been a great reminder to me that none of us do it alone in this world. But for the fact those electricians threw money into a hat, I would have never had the opportunities. After getting a great education, I became an entrepreneur. I started 2 businesses from scratch. Unlike the president who got his businesses handed to him, the only thing my dad did for me in starting my businesses is help me carry the furniture into my first company. I became the youngest CEO of a New York Stock Exchange company, created thousands of jobs. My companies were always voted the best places to work in their communities because I care deeply about my team members and the folks who I had the privilege of working with every day. And about 10 years ago, after a very successful career starting and running these businesses and created thousands of jobs, I decided to dedicate the rest of my life to public service, which is when I ran for Congress and I flipped a seat that had been held by a Republican for 20 years and had the privilege of representing Maryland in the Congress of the United States. So my life is one of those American dream stories. Blue-collar kid, first in his family to go to college, gets a great education, has a successful career as an entrepreneur, and then the privilege of serving my country. The problem with those stories is they're just tougher today. Young people today will be the first generation of Americans that will not do better than their parents unless we start changing things. Why? Because we forgot about my dad's lesson, which is you got to put the workers first. Because when you put workers first, then every community in this country does well. There's opportunities for young people in every community. And everyone has an opportunity to work hard, play by the rules, support their family, and retire with dignity. So what my campaign is about is ensuring that the worker is put first. So when we talk about economic policy, there's no question we should be raising the minimum wage. But we also should put our shoulder behind a huge infrastructure program. There's nothing better we can do to create good middle-class jobs in the United States of America than to build infrastructure. I'm calling for a $2 trillion infrastructure program, the largest since the creation of the federal highway system. And it'll do transportation, it'll do energy, it'll do water, and it'll do communications infrastructure. It'll create jobs everywhere in this country. Those are the kind of things that should be the centerpiece of our policy. When we talk about health care, we absolutely should end the tragedy of the uninsured. Every American, in my judgment, should have health care. I think it's a basic human right. I think it's also smart economic policy. But we also have to remember that a lot of workers in this country have worked real hard to get good health care, often through their union, and many of them like it. And we should not be running on a policy of taking away that union health care, which you've paid for and you've made sacrifices to get. When we talk about environmental policy, we have to make sure when we're dealing with climate change, which we have to do it, we have to put the worker at the center. I've called for, in addition to a whole variety of things we need to do, to effectively create a whole new industry around carbon capture and to locate it in the heartland of the United States by building something called the Carbon Thruway, which will basically be a pipeline laid next to existing natural gas right-of-way. So if we actually capture carbon from the atmosphere by using machines that union members can build and operate, we can transport that CO2 to places where it can be used. That's a pro-growth environmental strategy that will create millions of jobs in the Midwest in this country. For all of these policies, whether it's health care, whether it's economic policy, whether it's educational policy, or whether it's environmental policy, we have to put the worker first. Because if we do that, and we create a country where we're creating good jobs, and those jobs have a rising standard of living, and those jobs are located in every community in this country, not just 5 or 6 big cities, that's when this country will return to a land of opportunity and not a land of birthright. Because right now, in many ways, you've got to be born in the right city or go to the right schools to have opportunities. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. And these are the things I'm committed to in my campaign, because I believe this is a magnificent country. We have every advantage any nation could possibly want to have in 2019, except for one problem. We have a government that doesn't work. You know, like my dad, He worked hard every day. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest work. He wired buildings. But when you do an honest day's work, you get a building that works. You flip on a switch, the lights goes on. You turn a faucet, the water comes out. That's not what our government is doing today. It's not working. And we have to get it working with real solutions, not impossible promises. Things that can get done and make sense for hardworking Americans. That's what my campaign is about. My campaign is about the right answer, facing hardworking Americans, and actually getting things done that matter. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to be here with you this morning. Got some music. I guess that's my walk-off music here. Union members are very polite, but in about 2 minutes, some big person's going to come out from behind the stage and more firmly escort me off the stage. So anyway, I just want to thank you for what you do. Thank you for working so hard. Thank you for fighting for workers. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to address you here today. And I want to leave with one thing. I want to be your president, not just to, quote, be your president. I want to be your president to do the job. And doing the job means getting things done that benefit hardworking Americans every day so that they and their families can earn a decent living, support their families, and retire with dignity. God bless you all. Thank you for having me.